I wish I had a really big, cool book to open up and indicate that story time was beginning, but we could just imagine it. Last month in December, I utilized this idea to tell you the astrology for December through the story of these two fictional characters, Jack and Emma. And for me personally, I found it was actually easier for me to keep track of what was going on in the month astrologically because I had their story on my mind. So this month, I was able to do the next installment of Jack and Emma's story in January and tell you the astrology built into their story. After their first kiss on New Year's Eve, Jack and Emma decided to take things slow. Both felt quite an undeniable connection, but because it might be something really special, they didn't want to push it too fast. They wanted to be cautious. So the first week of January held some tension for both of them. Externally, the world was sort of pushing in on them. On January 3rd, Mars in retrograde in Leo was opposing Pluto in Aquarius, and Jack receives a call from a former client who was part of the reason he left the business he was in before. But this guy also has the ups and downs. He's very powerful, and when he has money, he has a lot of it. So he's trying to get Jack to reconcile and commission for him for some new projects. And Jack's actually very tempted because he needs the money, but at the same time, this Mars retrograde opposite Pluto is just bringing this tug of war inside of him between his ego and his pride and his pain, his integrity, and the power struggle with this guy, basically. So he spent his whole day brooding in the workshop, and he sanded down this piece of wood so far that it actually ended up becoming a trivet. He's like, oh, I'll make the trivet out of this piece of wood. Emma stopped by to say hi, and he didn't even really look up at her. So she noticed something was different. She said, how you doing, Jack? What's up? And he said, oh, hey, I don't know. I'm just trying to figure some things out. And she said, well, if you want to talk, I'm here. You're not alone. We can talk about it. And the words hung in the air, and Jack thought about it for a second. He almost told her everything. But the pain from that last experience it really devastated him, and he felt like it was too vulnerable. The Mars Pluto opposition made him feel like he couldn't risk even talking about it, and he just decided to change the subject. So he asked Emma, what's going on with you? How's the improv night plan going? Emma had that same pressing on her from the external world. She was trying to finalize the schedule for that improv night, but the more she thought she had it finished for the next night to do it, there was another delay. People were canceling at the last minute, and she was tempted to just cancel the whole thing. And Jack just said, no, Emma, don't cancel it. You don't have to do it alone. I can help you. We can help each other again. So Emma nodded, and she smiled at him. Having someone there was really new for both of them. The next day, after a very successful and silly improv community show at the Storyline, Jack told Emma about that former client, and he was ready to be vulnerable with her and tell her how it made him feel and all the things that happened and why he had to leave his other business. And he felt like he was being cornered, forced to do this thing with this guy. And he didn't really know still what he was going to do. But Emma just took his hand and said, Jack, you don't need to make a decision now, but you should go with your gut. If it doesn't feel right, maybe it isn't. January 13th, 2025, the full moon in Cancer hangs like a beacon above, its light casting long, beautiful shadows, illuminating the night with an ethereal glow. Beautiful night. And the moon's light holds the potential for some emotional truth to emerge, moon in Cancer, but it's intensified by Mars's retrograde. So it's revisiting those hurts and bringing courage to them. As she closes up the shop, Emma's phone buzzes with a text from Jack. He said, do you want to go for a walk? I could use some fresh air. Sure, meet you out front, Emma texted back. So they meet outside the front of the Storyline, and the moon is illuminating the whole entire street. It's beautiful. Jack has been grappling with this decision about his former client, feeling that tug of Mars retrograde, taking him back to some pain, some hurt. And it's urging him to have some introspection about it, rather than being impulsive and having just a no based on his feelings. So have you made a decision? Emma asked. I've been thinking about it a lot, and I think I've decided I'm not going back with that guy. Emma smiles in understanding and support, and she says, I think you've made the right choice, Jack. It's time to move forward now. Yeah, Jack says, there will be other jobs. It's just money, I'll figure it out. With this moment of clarity, Emma has an idea. She remembers the trivet that Jack made earlier in the month, kind of by accident because he was stress woodworking. And she says, maybe we could collaborate on something. I know you usually do big woodworking projects, but What about maybe branching out and doing smaller, more artisan things too that can, bring attention to your work? Maybe you could make trivets for the Valentine's event. Jack feels a sense of alignment with this suggestion, and the moon's illumination, coupled with Mars's introspective energy, is guiding him and her, their path forward. He knows exactly what's in his heart now, and he says, yeah, I think I really do like that idea. That sounds good, Emma. Thank you. January 14th, Venus in Pisces square Jupiter in Gemini. This is a very expansive but scattered kind of frictional aspect. It brings out that dreamer and Emma. She's got that idea about the Valentine's thing, but all of a sudden it starts getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Jupiter in Gemini is a little bit tricky. It makes everything seem possible until you're kind of out in the weeds, like don't really realize what you've gotten yourself into. So by noon, Emma's plan had gone from just a simple poetry night, Valentine's thing to a big, huge extravaganza, complete with live music, food, decor, all of it. New love seats. And Jack says, I thought this was supposed to be simple. She smiled and said, yeah, simple, sure. Yeah, simple's okay, but it's supposed to be magical. She's excited, but she's also tired. She's exhausted, actually. And he says, Emma, I think you need a little break. She looks up at him, her eyes tired but grateful, and she says, I don't have time for a break. There's too much to do. Jack raises his eyebrows and smiles at her and says, that's exactly why you need a break. How about we go to the new movie we both want to see and just take our minds off of things for a while? Emma hesitates because the future of the bookstore is always weighing on her. It's a lot of stress. But something about Jack's suggestion about just going to the movies, having some fun. She lets out a long breath and then she smiles a little bit reluctantly, says, thanks, Jack. Maybe a little break is just what I needed. January 19th, Venus conjoined Saturn in Pisces, Mercury sextiles both of those planets. Those big, dreamlike, romantic things of Venus and Pisces comes into a little bit of a reality check for Emma. She's sitting in her office, just waking up from this kind of dream, realizing she's spending a lot of money. She's had to put a lot of cash into this event, even before she's even opened it up to sell tickets or anything. It's a big expense. And she's just sitting in that cramped office after close in the back of the store, calculator in her hand, papers all over the desk. And she's just frowning at the expenses and kind of feeling despondent about it. Jack walks in. He's carrying a box of these stunning wooden trivets that he's made. They're beautiful. And he wants to show them to Emma for the Valentine's Day event. But she can't even look up. She's just so in her own world doing this accounting or whatever. And he just says, that bad, huh? Oh, God, I didn't think the linens would be this expensive. It's so discouraging. So he sets the box down of trivets on a pile of books. And finally, he stands across from her. We don't have to do this all at once. It doesn't have to be this complicated. This whole magic thing, it'll still be magic, even if it's just a little messier. It doesn't have to be perfect. It can just be what it is. With Venus and Pisces conjunct Saturn, the weight of their unspoken feelings seemed to settle into something more solid, more real. She could feel that he really cared about her. She put down her calculator and just looked up at Jack and said, Jack, you want to hang out for a little bit? And Jack said, of course I want to hang out, but not in here. This place, let's get out of here. We don't need to be here. Too much stress in this office. Let's get out of here. So he reaches out his hand and he takes Emma to one of the beautiful new love seats that he's built for the event. Kind of heart-shaped, I imagine. Red, I don't know, velvet maybe. Use your imagination. Anyway, this should be nice. Jack's a good woodworker. So he turns to Emma and his voice is very quiet and he says, I really do admire what you're trying to do here, Emma. This is like amazing. All the effort you've put into this place. It's very inspiring and you're inspiring a lot of other people with what you're doing with your dream. Emma feels this warmth flowing across her chest. She hasn't realized how much she actually needed to hear those words that felt really good. And so she smiles and she kind of looks down. She's blushing a little bit. And then she looks up and meets his gaze again. That means a lot to me. Thank you. I've been really focused on making this work and I kind of forgot how it feels to have somebody in my corner. I mean, I'm just not used to it. And Jack, his eyes soften and he says, I'm not used to it either. So they sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes. The weight of the last weeks, now heavy, few weeks, finally lifting off of them. Jack sits there for a second and then he says, I have an idea that may help with the finances. What if we put the Valentine trivets for sale in the shop right now? we could build some interest for the event, and maybe we could cover some of the costs too, like for those is it tablecloths? And she feels overwhelmed. She's like, yeah, it's the linens, it's the tablecloths, it's everything. But yeah, that could work. She says, and for a moment, she's just kind of overwhelmed in her gratitude towards him and his kindness. And so they spend the rest of the evening coming up with ideas to help finance and make the magic happen. Mercury stimulating in that sextile to both Venus and Saturn will bring the ideas, and the Venus keeps that dream alive, while Saturn is like, okay, you can have the dream, but you still have to follow these regulations, these boundaries, these restrictions, and money is having to do with it here. So that's how it kind of plays out, the astrology there for the two of them. January 21st, Sun conjunct Pluto in Aquarius. This is the beginning of a new cycle for this Pluto-Sun story, and it's a day of very raw truth. The transit brings out something that changes the way that Jack and Emma see themselves and each other. It's kind of a big moment, an aha moment, Pluto Cazimi. The bookstore has been really busy. It's been bustling. There's so many cool things going on that people are getting excited. They want to be part of this community. And the trivets that Jack made have brought all this attention to the event, but also to his artisan work. They shared his work on the social media site for the storyline, and it's building a lot of buzz, stuff like that. It's more than enough to cover the costs of the tablecloths that she was worried about and pay for the work that Jack's been doing. To celebrate that night, Emma and Jack go to a local bistro for dinner, and then they're walking back towards the shop afterwards. Emma says, I've always had these doubts about myself and whether I'm capable of doing this, of making the storyline something real, something lasting. Jack turns to her, his expression serious, and he says, Emma, you have already done it. You have rebuilt this place from the ground up. It's already real. And I've seen what you're capable of. You can do incredible things. Emma shakes her head, but I've always second-guessed myself. They stopped right in front of the storyline. They turned towards each other. He says, I understand, Emma. I've had the same feelings about my own work, about making a go with it, with woodworking. But we're not alone anymore, remember? And Emma says, that's kind of what I was trying to say, Jack. I've always second-guessed myself, but I don't anymore. So I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for believing in me. The weight of those words, that just hits both of them. They both are feeling very emotional about it. And for the first time in a long time, they both feel very supported and deeply, deeply hopeful about the future. January 26, Venus in Pisces trine Mars in Cancer. With the Valentine's Day extravaganza only a few weeks away, the collaboration between Jack and Emma has brought a lot of interest. All the tickets sold out the minute they were released. It was just hotcakes. And that night, January 26th, the snow softly falling outside. Emma is finishing arranging the biography section, and Jack has dropped by to do some finishing touches on one of the love seats. So when he's finished, Emma invites him to stay for a drink. They chat for a little while about silly things, favorite songs, least favorite songs, stuff that they liked as kids. And they find out they both really loved and read the entire Goosebumps book series. Jack says, remember that one book? What was it called? Be Careful What You Wish For? That one really creeped me out. Emma shakes her head. Oh my God, the whole idea of a wish coming true, but that wish hurting others. Exactly, Jack says. I always think about that when I'm making a wish. I have all these mental disclaimers just to be safe. I have a confession to make, Emma says. What's that? After reading that when I was a kid, I vowed that I would never make wishes ever again, just in case that was true. You mean you don't wish? Jack says, puzzled. No, I have not wished, not even once, ever since I was 9 years old. Emma, do you ever think about what you would do if you weren't afraid to wish? Her eyes look around, and then look at his, and she says, yeah, all the time. Well, maybe it's time to let go of that, Ems. Wishes are beautiful. Emma nods. Maybe you're right, Jack. Maybe you're right. A moment of clarity is passing between them, and it's as if a weight is lifted off of her. The idea of reclaiming the simple joy of wishing now seems like it could be possible. It could be a new beginning. January 29th, Mercury conjunct Pluto in Aquarius, new moon in Aquarius. doubling up on this one. The new moon in Aquarius infuses the night with a sense of liberation and innovation. There are lots of planets in Aquarius at this time, including Pluto, just a few degrees away, and it adds a transformative depth to the night. This is a big moment, this new moon for these two. It's a powerful time of intention, of alignment, and making their highest ideals and long-term aspirations come to the forefront. Another day is at its end. The bookstore is quieted. The last customers have left. There's a subtle influence of Mercury conjunct Pluto at 1 degree Aquarius, and that begins to sharpen the thoughts about change. It's basically a time not to be superficial. It's a time to get really real and speak the truth. Jack and Emma are feeling this energy. They're sitting on this stage beautiful stage that Jack built at Christmas. And they're surrounded in this atmosphere of encouragement, of communication, of transformation. Can I tell you something? Emma asks. Of course you can tell me something. She looks down at her hands before meeting his eyes. And she says, I almost didn't do this. Any of it. The store, the fundraiser, anything. I almost just gave up. I almost gave up the store. Jack leans forward, his expression of understanding, and he says, well, why didn't you? Because I knew I'd regret it if I didn't try, if I didn't at least give it a try. Silence settles between the two of them. It's not uncomfortable. It's kind of charged with the weight of these confessions. And another thing, Jack, I've realized something, Emma says. Jack raises his eyebrows, intrigued. Yeah, what else? What is it? I've been so afraid to wish for anything because I was afraid something might go wrong. But you're right. It's time to wish again. It's time to wish for something beautiful and time to let go of my fear. Jack smiles and he holds her hand. He says, well, then let's make a wish together. Emma takes a deep breath and she says, I wish for a story to unfold between us, one that's full of surprises, where each page reveals something new and unexpected about who we can be together. Jack waits a moment, he smiles, and then he says, and I wish for a love that writes its own chapters, where every twist leads us closer, and every ending is just the beginning of something new and extraordinary, Emma. Wait, Jack, what are you saying? You said love. Are you saying are you falling in love with me? Emma, I already am in love with you. Of course I'm in love with you. Emma doesn't hold back her tears anymore. She lets them flow down her face. And she says, I love you too, Jack. And scene. The month of January holds a lot of interesting astrology. I think my highlights, the things I'm looking forward to the most, are probably the lunations. They seem quite interesting. The full moon and the new moon, especially the one new moon in Aquarius. That's going to be kind of a space for revelations, new ideas, rebelliousness, breaking out, having a transformation there and an ability to speak that truth. I think that's going to be quite an interesting moment. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed Jack and Emma's story. I like you just the way you are, and have a beautiful January. I'll talk to you soon.